what we're going to do is we're going to turn the machine on and adjust our speed to what we need to. So we have the steel piece that is already laid out and the aluminum piece. So we're going to do the steel piece first. We want to make sure that we check to make sure the drill bit goes between that slot for the vise. We're going to adjust the speed down to about 200. And we'll double check that when we get ready to drill. We're going to drill the steel piece first. Turn this off. Make sure we have enough room to be able to put our piece in. Remember, we're going to adjust this again. And we want to place the chisel edge of the drill in our already center drilled piece. This is where we're going to use our lubrication, our WD-40. We want to make sure that's available. We're going to turn on our drill bit, our drill. Make sure that we have good hold on the vise at the time. And you're going to put enough pressure and what you want to do is to make sure you have a good hold on that, and this is going to go ahead and cut just a one piece. Now, other than that, we got to make sure that if we're going to cut through to the second side, we leave it exactly the way it is. And we are going to check and make sure if we're on line, which we're not, with the slot. So I'm going to adjust that real quick. Turn the machine on. Make sure we have a nice hold. Now, a lot of the times when you're drilling, you might not be able to see where it's drilling. One of the things that happens, especially if you set it up correctly, is the hole will be precisely in the same position in the backside as it is the front side, as long as you don't move it. What you see here is chips and actually things on the backside that stay on. So what has to happen is we need to deburr or get those chips and everything off of there. So one of the things that we have for deburring is a file. I didn't put the file out because I really wasn't going to do anything at the time. So what you want to do is when we finish drilling and you see these things that are hanging on right here, you want to try and deburr that by using the file the way it is. You don't rub it back and forth like this. You have a forward motion, both sides, and this is basically deburred if there's any more pieces that you could feel like an edge, what you need to do is you need to take this to the vise so that you could have it nice and steady and stern, and use the file to get the rest of these down. Now if you run the file up against there, you'll see where the edges are, like I was talking about. And deburring is basically a safety issue so that you don't cut yourself. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up the aluminum piece. Now if you can remember, I gave you different speeds for the different metals when we were talking earlier. Now there's two ways that you could do this. If you're going to be drilling into the center, or you drill close to the edges or anything like that, you could take this, put it higher in the vise than laying it flush on the bottom. So once you put it higher in the vise, the problem that you run into is making sure that your piece is level. One of the things that you could do is put a piece of metal or anything like in milling, these create a step for you. You could use these when you do that. We'll talk about that when we get into Mr. Moe's class. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the material down on the bottom so it's nice and flush and even with the material. Oh, those are parallels. Sorry. So get it open enough. Make sure the hole is on line, or at least on the same track, so that the drill can go completely through. Now if you could remember when we were talking about the layout, the project, you have different symbols for going all the way through. The symbol for through is the T, actually with an arrow at the bottom. So that means it needs to go all the way through, and you'll see that when you do blueprints and you see when I give you blueprints. So we're going to line this up, and we're going to make sure that the chisel edge is right in that hole. Now we talked about the different speeds. I just mentioned them. The speeds that we're going to have to worry about for the aluminum is between 200 and 400 RPMs. The reason why, of course, is because it's a different type of material and it's softer and it doesn't take that much. Actually, in aluminum, you don't really need any kind of lubrication, but they do have what they call tap magic. So if you take a look at this little can right here, most of these cans are over in Mr. Moe's area, but if you take a look, it says aluminum, right? And this is tap magic. Now this is another probably video, if I could work it out with my producer, that this is for tapping, drilling and tapping. We'll get into different things. Hopefully we'll get a nice little video if we're still in this situation. I don't know how long it's going to be. So this one, you're going to go ahead and keep this next to you when you get going. You've got everything lined up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. It's already plugged in. We already checked it for safety. We're going to go ahead and turn it on and change the speed to about 400 RPMs. Okay, a lot of these machines, if we figure out it's supposed to be 400 RPMs, the closest one we've got is 375, and the next one in line is 500. You'll see that when you look at the machine. If you figure out that this is supposed to be 400 RPMs, do not go to the 500 RPMs. You're going to go to the one that's closest to the 400. So the closest we got to the 400 is 375. Now, remember, we want to make sure that we have a good nice speed going. Even pressure. Sometimes you have to go quicker. I'm glad that that happened, because when that thing starts turning and your hand's close by, you got to be careful, because that might cut you depending on the speed that you're doing when you're cutting. So if you get chips like that around your flutes, what you want to do is either take a file, knock it down, or you could get a pair of pliers and pull them apart. All right, so do not handle chips with your hands. You're going to pick these chips up. Either you're going to put them on the floor. If you take a look, if we can get it later when we start cleaning, see the chips that are down on the bottom, those are steel. If you grab those steel chips, you might cut yourself. So you got to be careful when you're doing that. So we're going to take this off. Again, we have the hole drilled where we're supposed to. On the back side, ooh, there's another hole there. On the back side, you will fill the raised portion. You will take your file, and that's not too bad. That actually took the edges off, both sides. And the reason why you do this is because you're going to bring it to me and I'm going to measure it. If you don't deburr this and I take a measurement, it's going to be off. Also, like I said, deburring is safety. Okay, so we finished what we're going to do, right? So we want to make sure at this point, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the best I can, but you don't have to watch me clean up. We're going to clean the chips onto the ground. We will sweep them later, take our tools and our lubricants back to where they need to be so they're in the right place. We're going to go ahead and make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to before we leave. I just noticed something. That is a drift pin. The drift pin goes into this slot right here, and it pushes out whatever's in there that has a tang. This is the chuck key. This is the way it's supposed to be. The chuck key is on the lanyard right here. This is going to be a lanyard. This one, we need to make sure that that's actually not in the area anymore. We don't need it. We have our own drift pin.